You want to know what it was like researching this video?
No! Stop it! Stop it, please! I beg you!
Hey there guys, my name is Tyler and welcome back to another TyTalk. Today's video I'm going to be showing all of you that communists are idiots. There is so much to cover, and I could easily make this into a 3-day long video, but I will do my best to focus strictly on the main points that they love to bring up. Before we get going, don't forget to do all of those things below to help out my channel so I can keep giving you new videos. One of the main points of contention with communists is that they often don't have a clue of what they're talking about. They will say it so confidently and yet get everything wrong. But first, let's start with definitions. What is communism?
Hello
You're
again.
back at it again.
Yep. So I think that we should be moving towards,
Communism.
Yeah, stateless, moneyless, classless society.
Well, yeah, but that's like one person saying it, right?
So, what is socialism? Well, it's common ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange. Related to that is communism, which is a stateless, classless, and moneyless society with common ownership of the means of production.
I mean, maybe. Hey, you know what we should do? We should hear from our local PhD, Professor Wolff.
Let's start with a basic question, but maybe not so basic after all. What is Marxism? What are the defining characteristics of Marxism as an economic and political theory and ideology?
Well, the simplest way to begin a definition would be to say it's the tradition that takes its founding inspiration from the works of Karl Marx. But because these ideas that he put forward spread as fast as they did and as globally as they did, literally it's 140 years since Marx died, and in that time his ideas have become major types of thinking in every country on the earth. If you know much about the great ideas of human history, that's an extraordinary spread in an extraordinarily short period of historical time. And what that has meant, that speed of spread and that geographic diversity, is that the Marxian ideas interacted with very different cultural histories, religious histories, and economic conditions. So the end result was that the ideas were interpreted differently in different places at different times.
All right then, that would be why appealing to authority is a fallacy. So with all of that said, yes, communism is a stateless, moneyless, and classless society where the workers own the means of production. This is confirmed by Friedrich Engels, the co-founder of communism, who wrote the Communist Manifesto with Marx. In his book called Anti-Düring, he says, quote, "The proletariat seizes political power and turns the means of production in the first instance into state property. But in doing this, it abolishes itself as proletariat, abolishes all class distinctions and class antagonisms, abolishes also the state as state." Marx and Engels believed that the class struggle was basically the cause of everything wrong with society. Marx also writes in the Communist Manifesto that when in the course of development, class distinctions have disappeared and all production has been concentrated in the hands of a vast association of the whole nation, the public power will lose its political character. Political power, properly so called, is merely the organized power of one class for oppressing another. If the proletariat, during its contest with the bourgeoisie, is compelled by the force of circumstances to organize itself as a class, if, by means of revolution, it makes itself the ruling class, and as such sweeps away by force the old conditions of production, then it will, along with these conditions, have swept away the conditions for the existence of class antagonisms and of classes generally, and will thereby have abolished its own supremacy as a class. Marx goes on in the Critique of the Gotha to say, for example, the social working day consists of the sum of the individual hours of work. The individual labor time of the individual producer is the part of the social working day contributed by him, his share in it. He receives a certificate from society that he has furnished such and such an amount of labor, after deducting his labor from the common funds, and with this certificate he draws from the social stock of means of consumption as much as the amount of labor cost. Ah, yes, a certificate to show that I have worked and to use in exchange for goods. Man, where have I heard of that before? Now, this is particularly hilarious to me because according to Marx, communists wish to eliminate money. But also, according to Marx, he wants a heavy progressive or graduated income tax. So, we want to get rid of money, but before we do that, we're going to waste our time and energy redistributing the money through taxes. I told you that they were idiots. But let's keep going. The next thing about communism is that the workers will own the means of production. By that, they mean that everyone will have a share and vote in the land, raw materials, factories, machinery, and other capital goods that are necessary for the production process. As I mentioned in my video, that's not capitalism. This is a horrific idea because we are not a hive mind. We all have different wants and needs, and now you are leaving every piece of land up to a vote on what happens to it. Every raw material, every factory, every piece of machinery, everything is now up to a vote on how the people will use it. And as I asked in that video, what happens when 51% vote to starve 49% in this new democracy where everyone gets a say? Not to mention that communists advocate for theft. Well, they don't call it that thanks to redefinition, but that's what it is. When you take something that doesn't belong to you, that's called theft. Communists believe in seizing people's private property and distributing it to the workers. But don't worry, they don't mean your toothbrush. That's personal property. They've created a difference between private property and personal property. So they don't want to take your things from you against your will. They just want to take their things against their will. You know, and that's totally not theft. But, question. Who's going to enforce these rules? If you eliminate the state, there is no enforcement arm. There is no authority to obey. So why should I keep doing this? Oh, right. The kindness of my heart. Sure, I'll put my trust in that. We have laws and law enforcement now, and yet people are still horrible to each other. But magically, once we get rid of the police and the government, we will no longer kill each other. Before I start my little tirade, I want to say that I do agree with communists on one thing, that communism has never been tried. It has never been tried because it fails in the socialist stage or the lower phase of communism. Marx said that a society progresses from capitalism to socialism to eventually communism. And every time we get to socialism, it fails. So in all likelihood, communism will never actually happen because socialism stands in its way. But, what about communist China? No. Their ruling party is the Communist Party, but they still have a state, have classes, use money, and the means of production is in the hands of the state. Well, it was more so years ago, but as time progresses, they've been privatizing more and more, which is hilarious because communists think that their economic growth is from communism and not the privatization of industries. Now, the same can be said for the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Money, state, classes, state-controlled means of production. Okay, so now that we know that communism is a stateless, moneyless, classless society where the workers own the means of production, let's fine-tune our focus on how communists don't even know what communism is. They get that it's classless, moneyless, and stateless, but they don't understand what that means in practice. They love to say things like, once you are free from the shackles of wage slavery, you can flourish and we can unlock your potential. No, you can't. That's not communism. Oh, you didn't know that. You didn't know that Marx was a big fan of the phrase, he who does not work shall not eat. This was also reiterated by communist Lenin when he said they are disrupting the grain monopoly and the proper distribution of grain by resorting to bribery and corruption. Cronyism, and by deliberately supporting everything tending to destroy the power of the workers, which is endeavoring to put into effect the prime, basic, and root principle of socialism. He who does not work, neither shall he eat. Now, this is funny for two reasons. One, communists love to say that capitalism has failed because it's based on work or starve. They have apparently forgotten that existence is based on work or starve. Alone in the woods, work or starve. Primitive communism, like the Native American tribes, work or starve. Feudalism, work or starve. Capitalism, yes, work or starve. But even socialism and communism are based on work or starve. This is reiterated by Engels in Anti-Düring, where he says, to the equal obligation to produce corresponds the equal right to consume. This is so prevalent in communist literature that the Soviet Union made it part of their constitution in 1936. Article 12 states that in the USSR, work is a duty and a matter of honor for every able-bodied citizen in accordance with the principle, he who does not work, neither shall he eat. You dumb fucks think that you're going to sit around all day playing guitar. Boy, oh boy, are you in for a rude awakening. And reason number 2 on why it's hilarious is that these people don't even know about the parasite laws of the Soviet Union. These were a series of laws that were passed in order to criminalize having a parasitic way of life. That means that if you avoided doing what they considered socially useful work, engaged in the informal economy, or did anything else that the state deemed antisocial, the state would have you arrested, imprisoned, or exiled from your home. That's right. You're going to the gulags to become a slave. Which is again funny because I thought from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. Modern communists think that this means that all of your needs will be met without needing to lift a finger. Oh no. You best get your ass to work or else you won't earn your right to consume. And you thought Nazis were the ones that had a problem with useless eaters. Ooh, boy. Now this next part, I will admit, is very tough to watch. I tend to think that every day someone has said the dumbest thing that I have ever heard. But I don't think that there will ever be anything dumber than this. Brace yourselves.
Right now, as you're listening to this, you are being robbed.
No, you're not being robbed while listening to this. You're being made dumber, but not robbed.
A chunk of everything your hard work creates is being stolen from you, and it's a sister called capitalism that's robbing you.
Ah, yes. Capitalism is robbing you.
Every day when you check into work for your boss, you are being taken advantage of and stolen from. You are being deprived of the full value of what you contribute.
No, you are not. Not even close.
Let me break it down. A capitalist isn't someone in a top hat burning library books to run a misery factory. Anyone who puts forward capital, money, to set workers in motion becomes, thereby, a capitalist. That is to say, they're acting as a capitalist. And what's their goal? People will tell you it's innovation or competition, but down the real world, it's pretty simple. Capitalists have one goal, and that goal is to turn a profit. Pursuing profits to accumulate money is just how capitalism works. That's the nature of the beast. It's the single impulse of capitalism.
No, that is not the one goal of a capitalist. Speaking of which, I liked you better when you were a capitalist. But let's run with it really quick. If that is the one goal of a capitalist, that means that nonprofit organizations cannot exist in a capitalist society because they are not motivated by profit. There are about 2 million nonprofits in the US. Are they just magically not capitalist? The largest nonprofit is Kaiser Permanente, and they made over $115 billion with virtually no profits. So they're not capitalists, right?
That doesn't make capitalists personally greedy, though some might be. We're not even talking about good or evil here. Capitalists need to maximize profit to the exclusion of all other considerations, or they'll get eaten up by capitalists who are smarter or more ruthless than them. That's the jungle law of the market.
Oh God, how do you have a PhD in economics? As I've said in the past, I'm a wedding photographer. You think that I sit here finding new ways to nickel and dime people out of their money with the sole purpose of maximizing profits, or else I will be destroyed in this industry by someone else. You really think that's how the world works?
So capitalists need profit to survive. But where does this profit come from? And that's where you come in. Literally, profit comes from you.
Profit does not come from the worker. You're about to do your useless little thought experiment, but I will add in mine ahead of time. First question, where does value come from? You being a moron, think that it comes from the worker. It does not. Did you know that Publius Cyrus wrote, "Everything is worth what its purchaser will pay for it"? And he said that 2,100 years ago. Value comes from the consumer. Value comes from the purchaser. It does not come from the worker. If value only comes from labor, why are autographs worth tens of thousands of dollars? Why are stocks valued so highly when they don't reflect an ounce of labor? All right, now let's run my thought experiment really quick. As a wedding photographer, let's say I make $10,000 a wedding. I don't. Would be great if I did, but I don't. But let's say I make $10,000 per wedding, and that is just me. Now, I hire a lighting assistant to help me, move my flashes, moves my gear around for me, and let's say I pay him $1,000 to do that every wedding. You think that not only he created an additional $9,000, but that he also is entitled to it. I brought this up on a YouTube video and some dipshit said, "Well, what if it was the second shooter who went in your place? You would owe him the money then." No, I wouldn't. Why? Because he didn't create the value. The client that hired me did. They decided before hiring me that paying $10,000 is worth it to them. That means that the labor cannot create the value since the value precedes their labor. How do you not know about supply and demand with a PhD in economics? I sell my services for $100,000. No one buys it. I sell it for $50,000. No one buys it. I sell it for $10,000. Now someone wants to buy it. It's almost like the higher the price, the less the demand. Weird. So the client has determined to pay me $10,000. For what? For my second shooter and his labor? For my lighting assistant and his labor? No, for my time, skill, gear, editing, and for the quality that I produce, none of which was made by the worker. If I hire him to be my lighting assistant, I'm now losing profit because without him, I make $10,000. But now that I'm thinking, hey, you know what? It would be easier to just hire someone to help me out. So now instead of banking $10,000, I'm now banking $9,000, and I am freely giving away my excess profit to someone else in exchange for their labor. And you view that as a problem. So, go ahead, give your shitty example.
Here's a little thought experiment. Meet Harold. Harold has a chain of buildings full of kitchens full of ingredients, but Harold doesn't know how to make a burger himself.
Harold doesn't know how to make burgers, but he owns all of these restaurants.
How does Harold get someone to make enough burgers that he can sell them and turn a profit? It's not a trick question. He pays you because you know how to make really good burgers.
If you know how to make really good burgers, open up your own restaurant.
The money he uses to pay you is what we call capital. That's money used to set production into motion. Let's say Harold spent $1,000 buying all the ingredients in the restaurant. And after you worked for a few weeks there, turning the ingredients into burgers, they brought in $3,000. Not bad. You added $2,000 worth of value to the ingredients.
Oh, no, you did not. Oh, I'm going to play the part of Harold. How do I know what ingredients to buy if I don't know anything about making burgers? How do I know what price to sell the burgers at if I don't know anything about making burgers? Not to mention that the burger flipper doesn't have anywhere near the investment that I do. Does he own the store? No. Pay the electricity? No. Insurance? No. Buy the ingredients? No. And the list goes on. Not to mention that if I'm running this burger joint, you're making burgers how I tell you to. I'm training you on how to make my product. Why is that? Because I'm the one that knows what the customers are asking for. And the only reason why I make this $3,000 in sales is because enough customers determined that my product was worth it to them. Why do you all think that labor creates value? It doesn't. Not even a little bit. You think a person walking into McDonald's to flip burgers is the one who created the recipe, cooking times, bought the ingredients, created the demand, and so on? God. Let's do another thought experiment. I make boards with nails in them. I go to Home Depot, I buy a 2x4, and I put 4 nails in it. That's maybe $5 total. Okay, great. I now sell the completed board for $10, making $5 each time I make a sale. I've done it for long enough now, and I have higher demand. You know what that means? I need a worker to increase my production. Great. I need a worker to convert raw materials into a finished product. I offer to pay him $3 a board. That way, again, I'm losing profit, but still making some. He's getting $3 per board, and I'm getting $2, even though I am now not doing the labor. Time goes on, and I decide that I'm going to buy higher quality wood and nails to provide a better quality product to my customers and to try and make more money. So now it costs me $50 to make, and I sell it for $100. You are still doing the same job. You are still committing the same labor, but magically you think that you've done more work and added more value, even though you have done the exact same thing. The reason why I can sell it for $100 is because people will buy it for that. But keep going on with your video.
But wait, you don't get all the money, because Harold now has $3,000 on his hands. $1,000 of that is just making up for the cost of the ingredients, and if you were paid for the full value of your labor, you'd be making $2,000.
No, you were already paid the full value of your labor. Oh, yeah, but who determined that? We did, when I hired you. When I said I will pay you $15 an hour to flip burgers, and you said yes. That is what your labor is worth. The end product is irrelevant because the end product is not involved with our transaction. You sell labor, I buy it. What I do later is not relevant to me buying your labor. Labor does not create value. But for shits, let's run with it. Okay, fine. You and your labor are the only thing that is responsible for creating this profit. Your labor alone generated those $3,000 in sales, and you think I owe you that money. Okay, now what happens when your labor generates a loss of $3,000 because you can't sell those burgers? When do I get my money? Your labor creates the value, right? Your labor also creates the loss. And if I owe you for profit, you owe me for the loss.
But then Harold would only be breaking even on the burgers, and he needs to make a profit in order to survive. So Harold does not pay you for the full value of your labor. Maybe he pays you just $1,000 of the value you produced. Maybe he pays you $1,500. No matter what, you've been stolen from. You spent more of your labor than you were compensated for.
It's not theft if it never belonged to you. Oh, it's not yours just because you redefine it into being yours. This is the part that you morons will never get. It's called the transaction is over. If I hire you to do XYZ for 1 hour at $10 an hour, that is the deal. You do XYZ, 1 hour has passed, here's your $10. Here's your certificate of labor. But the transaction is over. I don't owe you more money if I go make more money from a third party. You are not involved in that transaction. I use Nikon cameras for weddings. Do I owe Nikon more money because I use their labor to make a profit off of it? No? Why? Oh, that's right. The transaction is over. We completed our contract. They said their camera was worth $3,000, and I agreed. I promise you, I absolutely used those cameras to make money. But you think that because I, the owner of the store, the buyer of the ingredients, the guy who pays you, should not make more money than you because you did exactly what? You turned raw materials into a final product? Slave morality hates hierarchies. As I mentioned in my capitalism video, if there was a political, social, and economic system based on slave morality, it would be communism. They think that an employer has unfair power over you. They think that we should all be equal, no hierarchies. They think that businesses should be communally run. Okay, burger flipper. I've been doing this for 30 years and you just got here. Apparently, we now need to vote on how to run this business together, and our votes are equal in value. So go on, enlighten me on how we should be running this business. Go on. What ingredients should I order and from where? When should we ship them in? How much are we paying for shipping? How long are they going to last for? Do you know how to do cost accounting to figure out how much exactly each leaf of lettuce will cost us? What's that? Sorry, what? You've never run a business before? You don't know how anything works, and you want your vote to matter as much as mine? You want to have a say in every resource, every factory, every ounce of food when you don't know how anything works. You are an idiot, an entitled idiot. You just want shit for free. And if you came out and admitted that, I'd have more respect for you. But instead, it needs to be subversive. It needs to be sneaky and conniving. I'm going to redefine theft and say that unless you give me all the money you're making, you're stealing from me. You want to know why you're not making more money? 2 reasons. 1, yes, our system is fucked up right now because of cronyism. But 2, for the vast majority of you, you're not worth it. Everything is worth what its purchaser will pay for it. No one wants to pay more for your labor because your labor isn't worth it. Sorry. I used to do weddings for free when I first started doing them. Now I make a good amount more. Why? Because it is worth it to the people that hire me. At one point, my labor wasn't worth it to anyone. Then I got better. I increased my value as a photographer, and look what happened. More money. Now I'm going to say some shit that everyone loves to ignore in these videos. You, the viewer, who's hopefully not a communist, but you can do it too. You can become better and earn more money. The only thing stopping you from becoming better is the voice in your head telling you that you can't. Well, there's also some other external voices since people don't want you to succeed. But the punchline is that it is up to you to improve yourself and your skills in order to make more money. Who determines what you need? You need more money to give yourself more of the things you need and want, yes? So who determines what you need? You. It is not the employer's responsibility to give you what you need. We all have different wants and different needs, and those things are determined by us, the individual. Communists want the government to determine that. Excuse me. Socialists want the government to do that. And then communists want society to do that for us. They want society to vote on our needs. This is just another inversion of how things should be. They want to determine what everyone is worth because they, the communists, both know and hate that they are worthless. Hey there guys, thank you so much for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next one. Thank you again so much for watching.